Hi, Prasad. Good evening.
Hi, Murli. Very good evening. Please go on.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you said right in WhatsApp that is actually same. It was same only. So still the same like authentication issue is coming.
Now, which authentication issue? I didn't get you, Murli. Sorry.
The credentials for the Fusion Cloud, those were same only. Which were said in the email. Those are same only.
Okay, which did you try to connect to EUDU instance?
The first one, the first. Yes, yes.
The first one is in red, right?
Yes.
Red means it is not working. Okay, you can try ETAQ or EUDU. EUDU is working, and this is what we will use now.
Yeah,
Okay. And we need to. Okay, is everybody in? Let me just check. Yeah, I think we can get started. Yeah, I'll share my screen. So we started off with the FBDI integration design yesterday. And we discussed what's the use case going to be. So the expectation is that yes, Bloomberg is going to place in the exchange rate file on a daily basis in a specific SFTP folder. And we need to build a scheduled orchestration to pick up that file or download it. And we need to do the required transformation and then send it to ERP cloud using ERP connection. And to do the post-processing actions, we are going to build a callback integration as well. Okay, so we're going to build two integrations in total. So if I've logged into OIC instance here, and since we don't have Bloomberg to place the files in SFTP location, I created this folder structure in UG63 FBDI GL daily rates input, and I placed files to zip files with exchange rates for today and tomorrow. Okay, with exchange rates for today and tomorrow. And what's the expectation? Usually for a business object like exchange rates, we get only one file base. But why did I place a couple of files? Because I want to show you how to build integration in such a way that it is capable of handling multiple files. Because tomorrow, if it is journals or purchase orders, right, you would certainly get multiple files from a data source. So what is it that you should be doing, guys? In the main integration, you would basically do the same stuff that you do in file transfer, at least partially. So you're going to create a scheduled orchestration list on the files, loop through them, and within the loop, what steps do we have, guys? Within the loop. So what are we doing here? Scheduled orchestration. You receive the file name, pattern, and input directory path as a schedule parameter. We list down the files. And after we list the files, we were looping through them. And within the loop, what exactly are we doing, guys? Within the loop, we have steps to basically transfer the file from one location to another location. So until the loop part, it's going to be same. But within the loop, I'm going to plug in actions to load the file into ERP cloud instead of transferring. Okay. So let me go ahead and create an integration. So we need FTP and ERP connection. We already have both the connections. And I've also pointed ERP cloud connection to EUDU instance, which is the latest one. And we need to get started with integration build. So create an integration. Which integration style is appropriate for this profile, guys, for this integration? Schedule orchestration. And I'm going to say FBDI GL daily rates main service. And the file transfer service, right? We've already created it earlier. So first of all, we're going to define two schedule parameters. And the file name pattern. I'm going to say that yes, search for the files whose name starts with GL daily rates interface. And after that, anything can come. It can be a date or a timestamp, and it has to be a zip file. And what are we going to do after this? We would be using FTP connection. And you would do our list files from SFTP. List files operation. Since these two are mandatory attributes, I'm going to put in dummy values A and B. So I'm basically doing the same stuff that we have done in a file transfer service. So if you've already practiced this integration, it shouldn't be a surprise for you. So we're basically listing down the files mentioning dummy values in here. I'm going to overwrite it in the mapper. Whatever directory path that we receive, right, and file name pattern, I'm going to pass these two as input here. And you're going to get back a collection of files here. You would get back a collection of files here, and we just have to loop through them. How do we loop through the files, guys? We use a for each loop. And we say I'm going to call it as process each file because we're going to load it into ERP cloud. And we need to map the repeating element. So whatever files we get in the response, the repeating element, I'm going to map it here. Sorry, need to map the repeating element. And in the current element name, what name do we use, guys? Let's say current file. It makes sense, right? So with this current element name, we're going to access the file properties. Whatever file is going to be processed in that particular iteration. If you want to identify it, we would make use of that. Make use of that current file element. Now within the loop, what steps do we need to perform, guys? Before I explain the steps here, our first important point is just want to open the FBDI nodes. When you load an FBDI file manually, guys, when you load an FBDI file manually, so it's completely fine if you just have a zip file with a CSV file in it. So it's completely fine. If you have just CSV file in a zip file, that's fine. You would pick up that zip file with a CSV file in it. You would run the loader job first, and then you run the import job. Okay, so you run the loader first, uploading the zip file with only CSV file. Then you run the import job, picking up the parameters and submit the job. But when you're sending a file, from an integration flow, when you're sending a file from an integration flow to ERP cloud, we are sending a file here, right? Now, when we send a file from integration to ERP cloud, what ERP cloud will do, guys, first of all? It needs to run the loader job. What job it needs to run, first of all? It has to run the loader job. Does ERP cloud know what loader job it needs to run, guys? Is it a common loader job that we have? Load interface file for import. Since this is a common loader job, so it doesn't matter what you're dealing with, whether it is a journals or whether it is invoices or purchase orders, doesn't matter what you're trying to load. The loader job is always going to be this one. So it's a common loader job that we have. So ERP. So we're going to pass in a zip file as input to this, and ERP knows very well that it has to run this job, and ERP is going to run that job in Fusion Cloud, in ERP Cloud. It's going to execute this job. And after this job is done, remember, import job needs to be submitted in ERP Cloud. Now at this point, ERP will come back and ask the OIC instance, boss, tell me which import job I need to run and with what parameters. Yes or no, guys? Because it doesn't know what import job to run, and it also doesn't know with what parameters it needs to submit a job. So for that reason, what we do is, when we send a file from an integration in OIC to ERP Cloud, when we send a file from integration to ERP Cloud, we are going to send a zip file, and that zip file will have a .csv file in it. And this .csv file will have the data. And apart from that, we would also include a .property file. Apart from this, we would also include a .property file as well. And what details do we have in the .property file? In the .property file, you're going to mention which import job needs to be executed and with what parameters. Okay, so when you send the file from integration in OIC to ERP Cloud, you would send a zip file first of all. Okay, in that zip file, you will have two files. First of all, a CSV file, which would contain what data to import. And ERP Cloud knows that it has to run this loader job. After that, it needs to run the import job. To let ERP know which import job it needs to run and with what parameters, we need to include the .properties file, and we need to send it to cloud. We need to include .properties file and we need to send it to cloud. Okay, so the zip file that we're going to send to ERP Cloud, it is a file which contains a CSV plus property file. And usually what we do is we push the data source. We always try to push the data source to give us this zip file, which has both a CSV file, which has data to import, plus the property file. Properties or manifest file both mean the same, guys. It's basically a file which contains the import job details and the parameters. Now, what we do was we go into integration. So usually the data source, we push them to give us a zip file, which has both CSV plus property file. But sometimes our data source might say, Prasad, I can only give you a CSV file in a zip file. I can help you with that bit, but I cannot give you a .property file. They say, sorry, boss, I cannot give you a .property file. Very much possible, yes or no, guys. Property Bloomberg might say, Prasad, I'm sharing this exchange rate file not only with you, boss. I have 10,000 other clients. So I'm going to give you a CSV file, which has exchange rates and whatever additional files that you need to load a file into your system. It's your headache. Please handle it at your end. Many clients would say that, especially their external data sources. Yes or no, guys?
Yes.
So what is it that we need to do? We go with that assumption, because if data source is going to give you everything, building integration is very simple. I'm also going to talk about how to do that as well later on. But if data source doesn't give you a property file, we go with that assumption and let's build the integration. So what's the assumption that we're going ahead with? That we get a zip file, and in that zip file, how many files would be there? Only .csv file. Okay, we don't have .property file in it. So what do we do in such case? So the steps that we need to do is within the integration, first of all, I need to download that file to the OIC file staging area. So I'll use FTP connection. I would say download file to SFTP, continue. And you say download file operation. Input. Sorry, I'm not going to mention which file to download and from what directory, because it keeps changing within the loop. Because in the first iteration, it could be 11 January file. Second iteration, it could be 12 January file. So I'm going to map the current file properties here. And to what temporary path the file needs to be downloaded. So I need to mention a temporary path here. So I'm going to say /tmp. Or let's call it as exchange rate. So I'm mentioning a temporary path here. Now, the way it works is, remember guys, OIC internally has a file staging area. OIC internally has a file staging area. Now, whatever directory path that you mentioned here, that temporary directory path will be created in that file staging area, guys. This directory path gets created and the file is going to get downloaded to it. In the first iteration, 11 January file gets downloaded to this location. Second iteration, it will be 12 January file. And two more points here. So this exchange rates a directory that you are that is getting created in the temporary folder, guys. It is we cannot go to the temporary location. We cannot go to the OIC file staging area to see what directories are there and what files are there. Okay, we cannot go and see what directories are there or what files are there in that directory. That is not possible. Okay. So we just go with an assumption saying that a slash exchange rates directory. So what would happen, guys, when you drop this or when you download, right? I'm not going to mention what file you need to download from what directory. But I'm just mentioning a directory path as exchange rates here. So what would happen, guys? In the OIC file staging area, a directory would get created with this particular path. And since it is a zip file that we are downloading, guys, if it is a CSV file, that's okay. We could have just downloaded a CSV file. We don't need to unzip it. But since it is a zip file that we're getting from Bloomberg, what do? We need to unzip it. When you unzip it, what would happen, guys? The file gets unzipped. And whatever is a CSV file that you have on it, that CSV file is going to sit in the exchange rates location. And how long will this directory be present in the OIC file staging area, guys? It would be there.
Integration complete.
Yes, only as long as the integration is running, it would be there. After that, it would be knocked off. So it's like a purely temporary directory that gets created only when the integration runs, and it would be dropped immediately. So what am I trying to do? I'm going to download the file to this location and I'm going to unzip it so that what would happen, guys? By the time integration downloads a file, okay, by the time integration completes this step, okay, let's also go ahead and do the mapping. And we need to download the file. Where do I pick up which file to download from, guys? I'm within the loop.
From current file.
Current file, because this is what we mentioned as a current element. So I'm going to say, OIC, please go to input location and pick up the 11th January file or 12th January file, whichever is being processed in that iteration. And download directory, I mentioned it as /temp directory. So it is going to pick it up from there. Okay. And so by the time integration reaches this stage, this directory path would have been created, right? This directory path would have been created. And what file is placed in that directory, guys? A .csv file, right? Because we are downloading this file and we are unzipping it. Now to that file, can I send it only, can I send only CSV file to ERP, guys? Not possible, right? I also need to include the property file as well. But are we getting a property file from a data source here? I requested Bloomberg, but they said, sorry, Prasad, please help yourself. So can we create brand new files in the integration in OIC, guys? You can very well do it. So there is a specific action called stage file, guys. Probably the most important action that we have in OIC. Stage file action. I request you to read that paragraph, guys, all of you. Very, very important. Process files in an integration. So stage file would help you to process files in an integration. And the stage file action what can it do, guys? It can process each file that you have downloaded from FTP adapter. And what operations are available in stage file, guys? Can you read that out? Read, write, zip, unzip, and list file. Did we see these operations anywhere else? Did we see these operations anywhere else? Read, write, zip, unzip, or list files. So these operations are also available in FTP adapter, guys. So I often see students getting confused, guys. So they get confused. They ask me, Prasad, when should I'm getting confused? I see the same operations in FTP and I see the same operations in stage file. When to use stage file and when to use FTP, guys? Ask yourself one single question. Where is my file? Okay, where is my file, or where do I have to write the file? So if the answer is going to be stage location in OIC, you need to use stage file. If you have to do a read, write, or any operation within the SFTP server, then you have to use FTP. And if you have to perform file-related operations within OIC instance, then you use stage file. You read with me so far? And let me drop in that stage file. What do I need to do, guys? I need to write a new file. And what is that file called as? Property file. Okay, now when I write a property file, I will select a write file operation here. So we'll first see how the write file and zip files operation work. And in a later session, I will also show you how the read operations work. So for now, I'm going to write a file. Now, when I write a file, I need to mention what should be the file name and where should the file be placed. Okay, I'm going to write the file with a name as GL daily rates interface dot properties. This is a name with which I want to write the file. And where should the file be placed, guys? Where should the file be placed? The file should be placed. Absolutely. So we want to write the file to the same location, same temporary location where we are downloading the CSV file to. Okay, go ahead and continue. Now, when you want to do a write file operation, guys, OIC would expect you to upload a sample file here. Would expect you to upload a sample file. And for that, you need to understand what exactly should be the content of a property file. So if you go into this 9 FBDI GL daily rates folder, guys, you would see a PDF attachment there. ERP Cloud Adapter documentation. And you open it up and you search for manifest file. Now, what exactly do you see here, guys? Tell me one thing before I come to this. Let me open up journal import service. Now, in a journal import service, we submitted import journals job, right? And when we submitted import journals job, what are the parameters that we had to map, guys? So if we go ahead and open up the parameter screen. So when we submitted import journals job, what are the parameters that we had to pass in? We need to pass in the job package name, import job package name, and the definition name. And we also had to map the parameters. So this is the exact same stuff that you need to mention in a manifest file as well, because the whole reason why you're creating this property file and manifest file is we need to let the ERP know. We need to, through that, when you send a zip file, we would include a CSV plus properties in the properties file. So the reason behind including that properties is we need to let ERP know which import job it needs to run and with what parameters, right? So what do we need to mention? We need to mention the import job package name, import job definition name, the property file name itself for a manifest file name. And we also need to mention the job parameters as well. So whatever are the parameters that that particular import job has, we need to map the parameters. Okay. So we need to mention the import job package name, definition name, manifest file name, and the parameters. So for example, if you are importing AP invoices, payables invoices, this is a import payables invoice job package name. This is a definition name, and this is a manifest file name or a parameter name. And after this, we would have the parameters mentioned. And for any parameter, if you don't want to pass in a value, guys, you cannot just put comma and comma, guys. We need to mention the values as hash null. We need to mention the values as hash null. If you don't want to pass in value for any of the parameter, you cannot just leave it blank. You have to say hash null. Now tell me one thing, guys. What is the so I've prepared the sample file. I've prepared the sample property file, and let me show you how it's going to look like. So in the sample properties file, what do we see, guys? We see that there is a header row at the top. Remember, in the sample file, we normally put in the header row. So what did I mention there? I mentioned the job package name. I mentioned the job package name, job definition name, manifest file name. Okay, job package name, job definition name, property file name, or a manifest file name. Either of them is fine. Job package name, definition name, manifest file name. And we also need to include the the parameters after this. So we need to mention the import job package name, definition name, properties file name, and then we also mention the parameters there. We also need to mention the parameters. Now tell me one thing, guys, how many parameters does this particular import and calculate daily rates job has? So this job,
No parameter.
It doesn't have parameters, right? So since it doesn't have parameters, what do? We mention only the job package name, definition name, and the properties file name. And it stops here. But let's say it is not important. Let's say it's not daily rates. Let's assume that we are importing journals. What do we have to map, guys? We would have, yes, the job package name, definition name, property file name also we need. And what are the other parameters we need? How many parameters do we have, guys? First of all, 7 parameters. Yes or no, guys?
Yes.
And we need to mention all those 7 parameters here. All those 7 parameters we need to mention. So that in the sample file, and you can also mention, and when you mention the sample values here, guys, I've deliberately put in a dummy values here. I've done it on purpose because I just want to help you guys understand that when you upload a sample file, OIC is going to create a schema, and in that schema, it is going to put in these columns. And for these columns, what data type is appropriate, it would be determined by looking at A. So the sample value that you put in here would only be used by OIC to propose what data type is appropriate for this. Since I'm putting in all the string values when I upload this file, it would propose a string data type for each of them. Now, if I upload this sample property file, what would I see? I see 3 values: job package name, definition name, property file name. And I would also see 7 parameters that import journals job has. I would also see the 7 parameters that import journals job has. But import and calculate daily rates, we don't need it, right, guys? We don't need it. I'm going to take it off. And I would only put in 3 values here, A, B, and C. But if it is any other import job, you have to include parameters at the top here. You include some sample values here. Oh, I didn't upload that sample CSV file. So I say upload sample file, CSV file. I'm going to upload that. Sample file from here. It's the wrong file that I have uploaded, guys. And after you upload a sample file, remember, guys, here if you see here, first of all, if you see here, the sample file that I've uploaded, it is a comma separated file, and there is a line feed at the end of it. And yes, the file has a column header, and it has 3 fields. And yes, the fields, the column header, first row is treated as a header, and you also have sample values here, A, B, and C. And for each of these, so what OIC did is, it has looked at A, B, and C, and since they are string values, it is proposing a string data type. So the only way A, B, and C would be used is only to determine what data type is appropriate for them. Okay. Now it's going to create a schema, and for it to create a schema, it also wants to understand what records do you have in this file. So you need to enter a singular and a plural label here as to what information you have in that file. Okay, what information you have in that file, you need to mention it here. So if it is an items file, you would mention this as items. So if it's an items file, you would mention it as item, and you would mention this as items. And if it is an invoices file, you would mention this as invoice, and you would mention this as invoices. You need to mention a singular and a plural label as to what information you have in the file. What information we have in this file, guys?
Parameters.
Or properties, right? So I'll just say properties here because it's a property file. So I say property and properties. And I click on continue. Finish. Now what would happen, guys? When you go into this, you go into the property file. Remember, the moment you try to do a write file operation, you see a mapper created. You see the plural label and a singular label here. Just a placeholders so that it can create a schema here and show that in the mapper. Now, what do we need to map, guys? For important calculate daily rate, since it doesn't have parameters, we only have to map the first three. But if it is import journals, apart from these three, you would also have 7 parameters as well. Now, tell me one thing, guys. Where do I get the import job parameters, guys? Import job package name and definition name. Where do I need to go, guys? I want to get the import job package name and definition name. Where did we get the package name and definition name from? For import journals, guys, we went to this particular task, right? Manage enterprise job definition, FSCM modules. And what job do we need? What job we need to search for?
Import.
Import daily rate.
Yeah.
Daily XP.
Yeah, I would say I'll go to this property file. Yeah, this is a job that we need to search for. Okay, so this is a job we need to search for. You edit it. And after you edit it, do you see our parameters here, guys? We don't see them, right? We don't see the parameters. You just see the job name and a job definition. So we would, yeah, let's copy this path. So this is what we need. I am entering this as entering this in the package name. In the job definition name, daily rates import, and in the property file name, what do we want to call the property file as, guys? We need to mention the property file name as well. So I want to call it as GL daily rates interface. We don't need to mention the dot properties extension, guys. Not really required. You just say GL daily rates interface. Validate. And if it is any other import job like AR invoice or journals, etc., you would see the parameters and you have to map the parameters as well, so that ERP knows what import job it needs to run and with what parameters. Now there's one bug in OIC, guys. Generally, if you only do the literal mappings, here we've done all the 3 mappings, right? But all 3 of them are literal value mappings. All 3 are literal strings. So if all 3 are literal strings, even though we have mappings in place, it gives you a slightly misleading symbol. It still shows a dotted line. Okay, but do ignore it. A dotted line, it usually means it's a missing mapping, but we can also, if you only do the text mappings, that time also you might see the dotted line. Now tell me one thing is, by the time integration reaches this node, okay, there is this directory path created, and what files were there in that directory path, guys? Let me close these files. What directory, what file is there? A CSV file is placed here. Now we are writing a property file, and when the property file is written, by the time integration reaches this node, if you go to exchange rates directory, we have 2 files in it, right? And we would be zipping them. We need to zip them, and we need to send a single zip file to ERP Cloud, guys. We cannot send files one by one to Cloud, guys. We have to zip them. Now, how do we zip the files in a specific location, guys? Because in this location, I have 2 files now. I need to zip them, and this is a file location. This is a stage location in OIC. How do we zip the files in a stage location, guys? What action do we need to use? Stage file. And what do we call it as? Prepare FBDI zip file. And you select zip files operation. Select zip files operation. And you mention which directory needs to be zipped. / exchange rates, right? Be very careful, guys. I avoid typing such things because we can commit typos. So go to this directory and zip all the files that are there in that directory. And where should the file be placed? Where should the file be placed, guys?
Archive.
You can put it in the same location, or you can say / exchange rates FBDI. So this is again a temporary directory within OIC itself. So after the zip file is, so with this files, it's going to go to this directory. It can see CSV and property file. It will zip those 2 files, and that file would be placed in output. That file would be placed in output directory. And what else do we need to do? We also need to, we need to mention what name should be used for that zip file. Now, one important point, guys, see, whatever file that we are getting from data source in SFTP, right? We are downloading that file here, we are unzipping it, and we are adding property file to it. And we are creating a zip file now again. And that zip file now has CSV plus properties. And that zip file is what we need to send to ERP. And that zip file is what you need to send to ERP, right? Now, when we send the file to ERP cloud, whatever name we have got the file from data source in SFTP, with whatever name that we receive a file from data source, if we get it as 11 Jan 2024, I want to send the file to ERP with the same name, Okay. So I'm going to say in the mappings here, so whatever is the current file, I want to use the same file name here. Because why am I doing it, guys? Because here, let's say you receive file with one name, and here you're sending file with another name to ERP. It becomes a lot more confusing, guys. Because once you go live, right? Our support team, if one file fails, in ERP you have one file name, but you need to understand what is the source file name for it. So it becomes a nightmare. So that's why when you send the file to ERP, we want to send it with the same name we received from data source. And tell me one thing, guys. We are not. When we get the file, right, we are picking up this zip file. We are picking up this zip file from SFTP. We are picking up the zip file from SFTP. And to this zip file, we are adding the property file here, and we are sending another zip file here. So this zip file that we are sending here to ERP, it is not this zip file as is. Instead, we are changing the content of this file. We are unzipping it, adding property file, and we are sending another file here altogether. So that zip file that we are sending to ERP cloud, guys, normally when integration errors out on any particular day, say for example, integration fails and the file upload fails in ERP. And if you are a support team member and you need to debug the issue, what is the first thing that you ask, guys? You will come to me and say, okay, Prasad, it has errored out. Let me debug it. Tell me what is the exact file that has been sent to ERP. Now, if you give me a file you received from data source, would I be happy? I'm going to say, sorry, boss, I don't know what transformation you're doing here. Give me the exact file that you have sent to ERP. Yes or no, guys? Yes. So whatever is the final file that we are sending to ERP, it would help quite a bit if we dump that file to one SFTP location and keep it for future reference. Because you might be doing a lot of transformations here. Today, we are just adding property file, but in another integration, you might also be changing the file content also. Okay, and that's why what we do is we would normally create a folder here in SFTP called file sent to ERP. And in this particular folder, we are going to dump that file. Whatever is the final file that I'm going to send to ERP, the zip file, which has a CSV and a property file, I want to dump it to this location. So how do you write a file to SFTP, guys? FTP connection, write FBDI zip file to SFTP. Why are we doing it? For support team reference. Okay, and I'm going to do a write file operation. I'll just say A and B, guys, as usual. I'm not going to upload any sample file because we already have a zip file with us. So I'll just say write a file. I'm not mentioning the directory paths or a content, and I'll say finish. Now, when we send the file to ERP cloud, there are two things that we need to map, guys. First of all, we need to mention what's the file name. Sorry, we're not sending the file to ERP yet. We're dumping the file to SFTP, right? So we need to mention map the file content. So when you prepare a zip file, so we use a stage file and zip the file, right? So that is going to get you back a response. In that response, you have a file reference. In that response, you have a file reference. And what else you have? You have a file name and the directory path. you have a file name in the directory path. Okay, so you go into the directory path here. Now, where should the file be written, guys? I don't want it to be written to this directory path. Let me go ahead and create another input parameter. You would call it as file sent to ERP directory path. Save it. And I'm going to write the file to that location first. I'm going to write the file to that location. So this is a directory path, file sent to ERP. Write the file to that location. And what should be the file name, guys, when we place the file there? With what name are we placing the file, guys? The current file itself, right? So we will mention that file name itself. And I've mapped the file content. Okay, when you're doing the mappings, or talk to yourself, guys, it would make it easy. Okay, what am I doing? Which file am I writing? Where should I write it to? What should be the file name and all that? Now, yes, we're also dumping the zip file to SFTP. So everything is done. Now, what is the final step that we need to do? We need to send it to ERP. So I'm using ERP Cloud Connection now. And we say, load FBDI data file in ERP. Now, so far, what option did we use, guys? In the journal import service and AP invoice REST API, we were using CRUD operations, right? Using web services. But since we are doing a bulk data import, we need to use option 2 here on this integration, import bulk data into ERP. Now, when you go to the next screen, tell me one thing is, when I send the file from ERP, from integration to ERP Cloud, what ERP Cloud is going to do, guys? The first thing that it would do is it would try to run the loader job. Yes or no? It would try to run the loader job. Okay. So let's see what parameters we need to pass when we have to run the loader job. So the moment I map the file to, the moment I send the file to ERP Cloud, it would, first thing that it would do is, it would try to run this loader job. And to run a loader job, what are the parameters we need to pass, guys? The first thing that we need to pass is we need to mention the import process. And the second parameter is data file. So when I send the file to ERP here using this, I'm going to, in the mapper, I would map the zip file. Whatever is the zip file that I prepared, I'm going to send it as input, and that would be the zip file. But we also need to mention import process as well, right? Even to run a loader job, we need to mention the import job because it is a common loader job, and only from the import job, a loader would know into what interface table it needs to dump the data, right? So for a loader job to run, we need to mention what import process what import process should be used. So what import process we need to pick up? Import and calculate daily rates. Import and calculate daily rates. Now, I often see students getting confused here, guys. So they ask me one question, Prasad, what is this? We're already selecting an import job here, right? Then why do we have to include the property file? So the import job that you're selecting here, dear, would only be used as a parameter to run the loader job. When the loader job runs, we need to mention the import job so that it knows what data we have in the file. And yes, we are selecting import job, but are we selecting the parameters here? We don't get a chance to select the parameters here. So the import job that you select in the bulk import node would only help ERP Cloud know with what import job name it needs to run the loader job. Okay, with what import job name it needs to run the loader job. So I say import and calculate daily rates and click on continue. And another important point is, what did I say earlier, guys? The moment you send a file to ERP Cloud, after the file, what ERP Cloud is going to do, it would run the loader job first with the import job that I selected earlier, plus the data file. So the loader completes. And after that, ERP would look at the property file that we included in a zip file. It would run the import job. And after the loader and import job are complete, if we enable callback, remember guys, callback is a purely optional configuration. But how many clients out of 10 would use callback, guys? 10 out of 10 clients would use them. Why is that required? Because we need to do the post-processing actions. We need to do at least a few post-processing actions like archiving a data file that is processed, sending out a notification, a lot of other stuff to do, guys. So callback integration is really, really important. So even though it is optional, we enable it. And the moment you enable a callback, what do you see, guys? You see an option, you see a paragraph that explains how callback works. So bulk import job has been simplified and it is based on business events now. So what ERP Cloud is going to do, guys, it is going to raise that ERP import bulk data with business event now. So it used to work in a different fashion earlier, guys. Earlier, the way it used to work is when we enable callback, we used to see integration identifier and the integration version number. And what we used to do was we used to mention which specific callback integration should be called by ERP Cloud. We used to mention in this node itself what callback integration to be called by ERP Cloud. But we no longer do it. We don't tag a callback integration now in a main service itself. We used to do it earlier. That's the old approach. But in the new approach, we just enable this checkbox and done. And what will ERP Cloud will do? It will raise this particular business event, guys, ERP import bulk data business event after the completion of the job. So it says bulk import job is simplified. Now it is based on the business events. On the completion of the job, meaning after the loader and the import jobs are complete in ERP Cloud, an event is raised by ERP. Which event? ERP by import bulk data event is raised, rather than invoking a callback integration. In the old approach, ERP used to invoke a callback integration. We used to tag here, but now it raises a business event. And what do we need to do as an integration developer? We need to create another integration called callback integration using app-driven orchestration. We need to use ERP Cloud connection as a trigger, and we would subscribe to that event. Okay, so that's what it means. Now we go ahead and click on continue. I'm enabling callback now. And what do we need to map, guys? First of all, when we send the file, we need to, whatever is a zip file that we have prepared. I need to map the file content and the file name. Enable the tracking identifiers. And we can also go ahead and activate it. We also need to create another integration. Now we're done with the main service. We'll just get started with callback. For a callback, for a main service, we use scheduled orchestration. For callback, we need to use app-driven because this integration should start running as soon as ERP import bulk data event is raised in ERP Cloud. So I'm going to say UG63 FBDI, GL daily rates, callback service. I'm going to use, what do we use here, guys? ERP Cloud connection as a trigger. And we say receive FBDI callback from ERP. And what are the options that we see here, guys? We see three options here. We need to receive business events raised within ERP Cloud. We're going to see how this works in the next integration. I'll show you how to subscribe to business events. And we also have an explicit option to receive callback message upon completion of FBDI bulk import job submitted via another integration. So if you have submitted FBDI bulk import job through an FBDI GL daily rates main service, and if you want to receive the callback of that FBDI bulk import job submitted from another integration here, you need to use this option. So if you want to receive FBDI callback, you need to use option number 2. Remember, this is also a business event, but this business event is going to be ERP import bulk data event, and it would show up as a separate option. So if you want to subscribe to item update event, accounting period closed, or journal posted, or all other business events would show up here. I'm not putting, and we'll see how this works in the next integration, guys. We would use option 2 now. 1 we'll see in the next integration. Option 3, I don't know when it would be helpful. So the moment you say you want to receive FBDI callback, you need to mention which specific import job callback do you want to receive, guys. Remember, I cannot tell OIC that, boss, I want to receive all the FBDI callbacks in one single integration. In the old approach, we could have created a generic callback service, guys, but that is no longer possible. I need to have one callback service per business object now, whether we like it or not, because when we receive callback message, we need to mention which import job callback do you want to receive. And what did I select here? I selected import and callback. Import and calculate daily rate. So the way it works is when ERP raises a business event here, guys, after the file processing is done, it is going to include all the details in that callback event, guys, in that ERP import bulk data event. It would mention what is the business object, whether it is a GL daily rates, what are the jobs triggered, what are the log and output files generated. Everything would be received as input into the integration. So yes, and since I'm saying that I want to receive a callback from ERP for this particular business object, what would happen, guys? The moment I activate this integration will get subscribed to ERP import bulk data event in this ERP cloud instance. I'll show you the business event subscription as well, guys. Remind me once tomorrow. The moment we activate an integration, this will get subscribed to ERP import bulk data event with this job applied as a filter. So what does it mean, guys? It means that as and when you load an exchange rate file using a main service, since this integration has subscribed to the ERP import bulk data event, which is raised in ERP cloud after the file processing is done, the callback service would be triggered automatically, guys. And what steps do we need to perform in a callback, guys? So let's start off with a simpler one first. Do you want to archive the file, guys? Whatever file is processed, right? Bare minimum, we need to move the file from input to archive, right? So that's the basic step that we need to do. Otherwise, the same file would be picked up and loaded to the destination. So we say archive data file. And I would do a move file operation. I'm not going to mention the paths here. I'll just say overwrite. I'm just saying I want to move a file and overwrite if it exists, but I didn't do any of the field mappings. Now you can store the directory paths in a lookup and get it from there, guys. But I'm going to hard code them here because I've already shown you how to use lookups to store the values. So I'm going to ask OIC to pick up the file from this directory path. And where should the file be placed?
Out folder.
Placed in a archive or out folder. So I think we have created a folder with the name as archive. So let's put it in that. I'm hard coding it, guys, but you need to get it from a lookup. Okay, move the file from input to archive. But what is the most important thing is you need to mention which file, right? So when you receive a callback from ERP, guys, and another important point, guys, if two files are processed, in one integration run, if two files are processed in one integration run, in one run of a main service, two files are processed, how many times the callback service will be triggered, guys? It will be triggered separately for each file. Callback service will be triggered once per each file. And if you go into the jobs here, you would see a document name here. And this document name is nothing but the file that has been processed. This document name is nothing but the file that has been processed in ERP. So if I'm getting a callback for 11 January file, so this document name would be, what would be this document name, guys? It would be GL daily rates interface _ 11 Jan 2024. If I'm receiving a callback for this file, so the document name is going to be 12 January 2024. So this document name is what I want to archive. And when I place the file in archive location, I want to place the file with the same name, since there is already a date and a timestamp. Now, what else do we want to do, guys? When we receive a callback, guys, when we receive a callback from ERP, we would get a lot of information as input, guys. First of all, you would get all the jobs information, like what are the jobs triggered, what were the request IDs, what was the completion status. And we would also receive a zip file as input, guys. And this zip file is, it has all the log and output files of the jobs triggered in ERP. Now, what are the jobs triggered in ERP Cloud Base to process a file? First of all, this load interface to import, load interface file for import will run. That job would kick off a transfer file, and the transfer file job, after this job is done, load file to interface would be executed. And after the load file to interface is done, this import job will be submitted. So 4 jobs will run for every data file. So all these 4 jobs, log and output files will be picked up, and that zip file is what you're going to receive as input here. And what I want to do is, whatever zip file I receive as input here, I also want to capture that for a support team's reference, guys. Because if a file goes wrong, guys, I want to make it as easy as possible for a support team to debug the issue. So for that, what am I doing? I'm already dropping the file here. Whatever file is being sent to ERP, I'm dropping it here. And after the file processing is done, whatever is the log zip file that I'm going to receive in callback, right? That log zip file, I want to drop it in the log location, so that they can see what are the log files generated in ERP for a specific data file. So that if I'm a support engineer, I have a data file here and I have a log file here. It would be easy for me to understand what's going wrong. So I'll use FTP connection, and I would say write a log files to SFTP. And we would select write file operation, and you mention this directory path, or I'll just say A and B here. I'm just saying that I want to write a file. No, I don't need to upload any sample file because we already get a zip file as input. So I'm just saying I want to write a file. And in the mapper, what do we do, guys? Whatever is the zip file that we receive as input, first of all, when it comes to file content, whatever zip file we receive as input, we will map that as input here. We pass in the zip file. And when you place the file in, when you have to place the file, in what directory path I need to place the file is, I want to place the file in this logs location. Okay, I want to place the file in the logs location. And what should be the file name? With what name I need to place the log file? Now, what I want to do was, and again, to make it easy for the support team to know which data file logs it is, what I would do was, I would name the log file after the data file itself. So I'll use the document file name itself. So if this is a file that is processed, I want the logs file name to be logs _ the data file name. And if it is 12 January, I want to say logs _ the data file name, so that when I look at the data file, when I look at the log file, from that name itself, I know which data file logs is this. So what is it that I want to do? I just want to concatenate logs underscore the document name here. And what else we do, guys? One last thing before we close the session for today. We want to send a notification as well. And I'm not going to create any lookup, but what I would do was I would just make use of a same lookup that we did earlier, guys. I'll use common properties lookup. I'll say get the property name and property value. Get the to email property. Click on that. I've already shown you how to configure this earlier. So get the to email. And the from email also, I need to do the same thing. Drop in the integration cloud function. Get the from email. I'm going to click on that. And in the subject, I'm going to say GL daily rates loaded successfully. And shall we also print the file name, guys, to make it easy for the support team? So let's concatenate this string to this string. Let's concatenate the data file name itself so that we know which data file is processed. And in the body, we could say the same thing, guys. We can say that, yes, I'll keep it simple. We've already seen how to process our HTML, how to send out a notification with detailed HTML. We've already seen it, guys. So I'm not going to get into it again. I'll just say one simple one-liner, GL daily rates loaded successfully. And I want to attach this, whatever is the zip file that I'm receiving as input. I'm going to dump this as an attachment here. That's it. So I just want to send out a email notification saying that GL daily rates is loaded successfully. I'm not looking at the job status here, but what you can do is just to enhance this here, you can have a loop. You see what is the import job completion status, and based on that, you can send either a success or a warning notification. But I'm just assuming that job is completed successfully, and I'm sending out success notification with a zip file attachment. Now I'll just go ahead and activate the integration using the document name, the data file name itself, as a file name, a request ID, and the summary status as well. We'll go ahead and activate it. And the testing part we'll do tomorrow, guys. I'll show you the business event subscription tomorrow of this integration, and we will test the integrations together and we'll see how it works. Any questions, guys, from anyone?
Prashad, Sachin here.
Yes, please.
I have one question on this AP invoice REST API. I got an error, so I just tried to rectify it, but I was not able to.
Okay, send me a message. Send me a screenshot with that message. Send me an email. I'll look at it and I'll let you know.
Sure. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi Prasad, since we are talking about this FBDI bulk data upload, so file size also matters. I mean,
yes, it matters, and I'll take a detailed session on that file size later on. So we're not done with the integration. We are building integration with one assumption that we get CSV file, no properties file. But in one session down the line, I'll talk about file sizes, how to work around the limitation of 50 MB and all that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we will also be talking about how to transform the file content from one format to another format, how to use a database layer while doing the file processing. So a lot of way to go. Yes, please go on.
Yeah, basically, in data transforming, basically, we will be doing, we can do column mapping also, right? Because sometimes CSV file.
Correct. Exactly. That is what I was referring to. So
Okay.
sometimes Bloomberg says, sorry, Ravi, I can only give you a JSON file. But can we send a JSON file to ERP, Ravi?
No.
Not possible. So I'm going to show you in a detailed session how to transform a file from one format to another format.
Okay.
So, Prasad, in first
Mhm.
integration, we have could check the job status, correct? Whether it is completed
No, we don't.
successfully or not.
No.
We didn't, but we could have done that, correct? Means,
No, we wouldn't get back a request ID of the import job there. We don't get back a request ID, and the main integration finishes even before the loader completes in ERP. So that's the whole reason why we had to make the create a callback service, because when we receive a callback, there are multiple advantages with it. You're going to get all the details that you need as input, the log files of the jobs, what jobs are triggered, what was the completion status. So everything you get as input that you need from ERP.
yeah, there are multiple jobs. So I think all
Correct.
jobs we get
Well,
it
yeah,
together as a zip.
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
You get a zip file, plus you get all the job job IDs, completion statuses. Tomorrow I'll show it to you in detail. What is the advantage of building callback services?
Okay.